As always, if you want your guys' mailbag question answered, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If not, just hit us up on Twitter when we ask for them. So this first one comes from Vegas Time 1, who asks, what is wrong with 49ers offense? Pithy, to the point. And I think the answer is pithy too. It's injuries. I mean,
I was about to say injuries.
You had last
Kittle
year.
wasn't on the field.
They were blessed last year. They had Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey didn't miss a game. Now they only played 16 games because they didn't play Week 18.
That's crazy.
But like they didn't miss a game. Debo only missed 2. You were healthy for a full season and then throughout the playoffs. So like that has not been the case. You obviously Christian McCaffrey just came back. You have Debo has already missed 2 games. Kittle's already missed 2 games. Ayuk's missed 3 games and ain't coming back for you. Even Juwan Jennings has missed a couple games. And it's just been like when they've happened, they're kind of just all over the place, scattered throughout the schedule. It feels like there's never been a stretch where everyone's been intact and healthy throughout this season. And you also had all that preseason drama where Trent didn't show up. Ayuk didn't show up. Yep. We just talked about with the Jets and
Pearsall got shot.
Exactly. So
gracious.
There's no, it obviously hasn't looked as good. I don't think there's anything schematic to point to. It's just they had the dudes last year. They don't have the dudes this year, unfortunately. And that's just how offense goes in the NFL.
Continuity is huge. Health
100%
is such a big part of that, obviously. And I think Debo has lost some shine to him as well. And I think he's such a big part of that offense historically. And obviously you miss a guy like Kittle, and Kittle, he affects so many facets of your offense. So I think that's a quick answer.
Yeah, they're in trouble this year because that schedule is a gauntlet down the stretch.
All right, next question comes from Bert. With Denver getting surprise contributors at all levels of the defense and the O-line and young wide receivers coming together, what would your priority be for them heading into the 2025 NFL draft? I still would love a wide receiver for them. Now, in this draft, not a great one. But like Luther Burden, I watch his tape at Missouri, and I'm like, that's what you're missing. You don't have a great yak guy. I mean, Marvin Mims is, but they don't even use him, right? So like if you had a guy who's in your starting lineup that you can feature on that underneath stuff that Nick's loves,
Yep.
that little hitch route that could break a tackle and get it going. I would love that. Now, will he make it to the slated draft 19th right now? Is he going to make it that far? Probably not. And after that, it's not a really great wide receiver class. So for them, I think they're in a great position to pretty much covet whatever they want, right? Like they're ahead of schedule. This is a team, when you draft a quarterback, you're thinking year 2, year 3. So you have the ability to just kind of play the board here. So I think if you don't have one of those wide receivers on the board, like I mentioned, you're just in a great spot to just say, what's the most valuable position and best player? Let's add them. If it's a defensive end, defensive lineman, that's cool too. Like stock it up, and that's great. So I think they're in really great
deep
spot.
there already.
You're not in a red flag situation. This is a green flag. The dating scene nowadays, people talk red flags, green flags, and I think this is such a green flag situation for Sean Payton and that group. They can go any direction. But I love what you said with the receiver position. Just make things more comfortable, more explosive, more successful in that offense, and you can do it through roster building, Lige. You can get your guy a little Josh Downs type, somebody that's underneath that can break out of man coverage really easily.
All right, next question here comes from the JAG on X, asking about, now that O-lines around the league are struggling to pick up blitzes and stunts, how does this change how front offices value offensive linemen? Will you see journeyman linemen become more valued over very talented projects? And if so, will that reflect in the O-line market? I mean, I think Kyle's phone has been indicative of how the O-line are getting valued right now. You're getting some phone calls, right, Kyle?
Yeah, I would say that the value of having somebody from that, I don't want to say old school. I sound like such an old head, but if you got somebody from the last CBA, you're going to pick up some stunts. I'll tell you that much, because they hammer home the details in the meetings. And I know these young guys, they're extremely talented, and I don't want to take anything away from them, but I don't know if it's the players or if it's the O-line coaches, because a lot of this stuff isn't rocket science. It's really not rocket science. So it's a combination of the quarterbacks, the offensive line coaches, and getting them together in that blitz meeting on Wednesday. figuring out answers, figuring out what looks. What are Lige and his buddies going to do to try to piss us off this week? Because you know that they're through that wall on the defensive line side of the building, and they're doing the same thing about us. It just tells me that there's not as much of a commitment in the midweek. I mean, there's no secrets in the NFL, but
No.
I think that they're still going to go after these young studs. The scouting departments, they still want the best available youth because youth is priceless. Yeah. But I think it's important to have a guy like we talk about in a quarterback room. You have one of these bridge/mentor type guys in your room that's ever important. And, if somebody gets banged up and they have to play, great. I mean, that's why we got you.
Yeah, to that point, that's why I believe swing tackles are getting upwards to $6, $7, $8 million to be the third tackle, because we just know there's 100% injury rate in the NFL, and that third guy is going to play most likely, right? So if you're a swing tackle on a team, and we know this, Kyle, a lot of these new formations that offensive coordinators like to roll out 6 O linemen, right? We see Dan Skipper going out all the time for the Detroit Lions.
You got to
you're going to be part of the game
too.
plan. Correct. So swing tackles, there's value there. And I think that's why a lot of swing tackles are getting paid upward to $6, $7, $8 million.
Shit, they're throwing them the ball, Lige. They're throwing these guys the ball sometimes.
It's a fact.
Yeah,
Put them on the MVP list.
See backups getting contracts commensurate with where we thought a low end starter was, and low end starters getting paid even heavier. It's an arms race. You got to have, like you said, that 6th offensive lineman, because he'll play. That guy's going to play on pretty much every single team in the NFL at some point. All right, next one comes from Bobby Chumbus. Amarius Mims was getting cooked by the inside move from Tui Pelotu a lot on Sunday. How does the coach clean that up? Movement, drills, etc. That was something we highlighted actually right off the rip with Mims. Kyle, you want to take this one?
So when I first got in the league, all I thought about was I laid in bed at night and I thought about the athleticism and the explosion of these rushers. And I would close my eyes and I would try to go through my pass sets in my sleep, in my dream state. But those dreams you have, when you get in a fight and you can't throw a punch. So your punches are slow. You know what I'm saying? You're just getting just tagged in the dream. That's offensive lineman dream, but we can't get off the ball. We can't get out of our stance. And as a young player, that's all you think about. Don't get beat around the edge. Don't get beat around the edge. Don't get beat around. And then somebody smarter than you, that's probably an O-line coach, says, what's the shortest distance between 2 points? And then you have to sit there and you close your eyes with your 2 brain cells and you think about it. And you go, oh, it's a straight line. I can't get beat inside. So at a certain point, Amarius Mims is going to figure out that losing outside is exponentially safer than losing inside. You can always run these guys by. You put your hand on the hip and you run your ass off. You don't stop running your feet. There's a lot of guys that make a living doing that at tackle. You underset. My coaching point would be this: step over pencils in your pass sets and always think underset. Always think underset. Inside out, inside out, inside out. If I was his O-line coach, yeah, you can afford to have your edge threatened and run guys by. Amarius Mims is a mountain of a man. He's extremely athletic. Run guys by. One thing we can't do at 6'7", 350 pounds is change directions very well. So if you go too far, you're going to have to come back inside. So stay early and leave late. That's my coaching.
Yeah, Andrew Whitworth was the king of that real short, tight set. They're just I dare you to go around me. And then
you got to either bull rush me or run around me.
Yeah. So with Mims, it was something that I think Andrew Thomas, his rookie year, was doing a ton of, and obviously he cleaned it up. So it's not a drill difficult fix, but it's very much something that does need to be fixed.
Go on YouTube and look up the mirror drill. Or if you have friends that are also big guys that play line, go do the mirror dodge drill, period.
All right. Ian Ewing asks, Mike, what do you think is causing the lack of pass rush from the Packers? Same talent as last year that gave us a top 10 pass rushing win rate. Yes, they were 6th last year in pressure rates, 20th this year. Now, I think some of that scheme, they're doing a lot more. Last year, their blitzes, to me, there's 2 types of blitzes. Jay maybe could provide a little more insight on this than me. But some are just like add-on blitzes where you're just rushing a fifth just so you get one-on-ones across the board. You just want 5 guys so that the offense has to block 5 guys. Whereas there's other blitzes where you have defensive linemen truly taking themselves out of plays to try to free up, say, one guy coming around on a looper, things of that nature. They're doing so much more of that this year, where it's like, hey, we want one guy to get a free look on the quarterback because that's all we need. One guy wins, we're good. Whereas last year when they were blitzing, it was a lot of, let's just try to get one-on-ones across the board so one of these guys can win. So there's that difference. And then I'll just say, I think 2 things. One, they've been a little banged up on the interior, but Kenny Clark does not look like himself this year. Like, even if you're just saying a running game, he has very much struggled. And then I think Rashawn Gary, when he's playing with his hand in the dirt, he's not the same guy as he was when pretty much his entire career he's been a stand-up 2-point.
He's so dangerous out of the 2-point. He times up snaps like nobody's business. And he's got that low dip and burst off the ball. That's just like, that's a nightmare guy. That's a nightmare guy.
He needs to see it. I think he really needs to see what he's attacking as a pass rusher, whereas when he's coming out of that low with his hand in the dirt, he just hasn't been as effective. So that's my analysis of the Packers and their pressure rate.
Yeah, sometimes the philosophy change can really hurt a defensive line. When you talk about guys having to switch up the way they're playing, right? I would like to see them let him at least be in the 2-point stance on the edge every once in a while. Because sometimes, like you said, Kyle, it's easier for guys when they're standing up to see what's going on, right? To be able to react, especially when they've been doing it their whole career. So sometimes it takes a little bit of time when there's a philosophy change, not just schematically, but what they're asking you to do out there on the field fundamental-wise. So I think that's been part of the issue with the Packers.
All right, last one here comes from Jake Liskow. What are some less than obvious signs that a team needs a culture reset? I think he's asking that as a Bengals fan, where there's been very obvious signs that the team needs a culture reset. But what do you guys think?
Anytime there's a change in play caller.
Yeah.
That's very
especially midway through the season. But then again, that's not always true because it worked for the Buffalo Bills.
What is your line, Liche? They're the exception to the
rule. Not the rule. I love it.
I think hear
exceptions and not the rule.
I think it comes through in interviews, right? There's just, when a team has a culture that people are believing in, there's a belief that comes through in the players and what they're saying. And it may not be, they still may be saying the exact same stuff, but the way they're saying it, I think you see that when there's like a demoralization in post-game interviews after losses. When guys after wins are still like, still preaching about how they're fighting, or still talking about, next week we're focused on, as opposed to kind of wallowing. I think that's when you see it. And is like the biggest under the radar sign is just the tone with which people speak.
Go look at the injury reports for during the week. Once you get past week 8, week 6,
based off the team's record. Based off the team's record.
Look at these injury reports and be like, I understand. I saw this guy get hurt. I saw this guy get hurt. That's real. That's very real. And then you're like, who are these 16 jokers that on the practice thing?
Hamstring back.
Hey, get your hamstring off the bike and let's get out here and practice. We're all getting paid to do this.